Well, we talked a little bit about Mitch there. Me and Ethan talked about how, we kind of wanted the Spurs to go, look for a big fish, just when it came to coaching names because of all of the appeal in Wemby and everything like that. And also Stefan, of course, can't forget him, and De'Aaron. It's like, I don't want to forget all these different guys that we have on the squad because, like I said, obviously Steph's rookie of the year. And then De'Aaron, I feel like sometimes gets forgotten about just because of the way that the season went. Um, Shoot. Okay, yeah, Matt, back to Mitch Johnson. So what were your thoughts when you heard that news, and you saw the press conference and everything like that? Because, as much as we said that, I think we always had the caveat. We're like, now if the Spurs just come out and they say, hey, it's gonna be Mitch Johnson, we're gonna elevate him. Like we're gonna trust in those guys, over our own judgment. And I definitely felt a lot better kind of after hearing, Pop talk about him. But what were your thoughts on, the hiring of Mitch Johnson and just kind of his journey to get to that position?
Yeah, when the season ended, I was like, all right, the interim is gone. We're not gonna have to deal with that anymore. We'll have Michael Malone or Taylor Jenkins come and take over. But after hearing the news, I was like, okay, this makes sense. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? Uh, for camaraderie rise, Wemby, he was working out with Mitch Johnson. The guys all know Mitch Johnson. He was on the bench for almost 10 years. And so I think it does make sense. But then you also have the Spurs having to talk to Wemby. You're not going to get a new head coach without going to your franchise player and saying, are you okay with this? Like, obviously, they had their plans in the beginning, but Wemby co-signs that. And so I was comfortable with it after hearing it. I was like, okay, it makes a little bit of sense. And then just the experience he's had, like I said, he has been working with the Spurs for almost 10 years now. So I'm comfortable with it now. But at first, I was a little shooken up. But then I was like, okay, this is probably the right move.
Hmm.
It's a real Spurs move too. After you think about it,
Right.
like they're not gonna go and find somebody else who doesn't know the program as much as Mitch Johnson. So yeah.
Yeah, and me and Ethan have talked about this question, but I'll just dish it to you, man. Do you think, I'm sure, I kind of feel like I already know the answer to this question, but how long do you think Mitch Johnson's leash is? Let me put it that way.
Uh, Probably about 3 years. I'd give him a solid 3 years because him being a first year coach, when they go into the playoffs, I feel like he's bound to get out coached at least once. So you're gonna have to give him this year and see what he can do. Next season, they're gonna be expected to take a deep playoff push. And after that, if he's not getting the job done, you're going to have to look at some other options because you don't want to frustrate Wemby and have another situation where he wants out. So his leash is definitely not as long as like a Popovich. I don't think anyone would have a leash like Pop. Like you're not going to fire Popovich. So
Hmm.
it's definitely different, but I'd give it a solid 3 years.
I know there's a lot left in the offseason as far as free agency, trades, draft, but right now, as the team stands, the current roster, if we don't make the playoffs next year, do you think he's gone?
Okay, well, when you say that, he might be gone if you don't make the playoffs because, well, if you said if the roster stays the same, right? If we don't go
Let's
and get a
assume we get, we're going to get Derek Harper and Rasheer Fleming.
Do
And
you get a
then
backup big man?
let's say you get one like Steven Adams, like some like
Okay.
old
Okay.
backup center that's probably not going to play that much.
If you fill in those gaps a little bit, even if it is a Steven Adams and you still don't make the playoffs, I don't think they fire him right then and there because I don't think the Spurs really move like that. I still say
Mhm.
you give him at least one more year, but he's got to make something shake after that. If you're not one of the top 6 seeds after not making the playoffs next season, then I think he's gone for sure.
Gotcha.
I think that's really realistic. I think that was a great question there as well, Ethan. And this kind of leads me into another question that I had. And I was watching one of your videos today, and you kind of talked about it a little bit. So again, I think I might already know the answer to this, but just what are your thoughts on team building long term? Like, do you want to just go full Thunder? Do you think that maybe even in a couple of years would be a better time to bring in a trade? Like, I guess my question is, there's all these storylines about trading for an all-star, whether it's this year or in the future because of Wemby's appeal and all these people, potentially wanting to play with him. but then you've also got long-term depth and building a championship team. So I guess what are your thoughts on that, and what are your thoughts on how the Spurs should build long-term?
Where the Spurs are at right now, I don't think there's a definitive wrong way to go. It'll be really hard to mess up what the Spurs have going on right now. I think my least favorite option would be like going all in for a Giannis. Like in my video today, I talked about Kevin Durant, and I think that would be more of something that I would like because although it is a win now situation, you wouldn't have to drain all your capital and all your young guys to acquire a Kevin Durant. So I think he fits a little bit better. He's a good shooter. He's a plug and play type of player. And so Kevin Durant would probably be my second option, but my first option would be to just go full like OKC and build through the draft, continue on because you have a lot of flexibility. You can make a lot of things shake, and you got to see where the team's at. Like we haven't been in the playoffs, so if you can get to the playoffs with this team and then make a decision, I think that would probably be the best option.
What's your realistic expectation as far as seeding? Kind of assuming that the big names kind of stay where they are, at least in the West.
So I think their floor is probably the ninth seed, but I do think their ceiling, like if everything goes right, they could possibly be like a three seed. So my prediction would probably be right in the middle, six seed. You barely get out of that play-in, but I do think they will be a pretty good team next season, hopefully.
My hope is that they have a similar season to what Detroit had this past year,
Yeah.
where they kind of catch some people slipping, maybe some key veteran signings like a Tobias Harris, Tim Hardaway Jr. that aren't world beaters, but kind of get you over that hump, but ultimately lose.
Yeah, it would help a little bit more if we were in the East like Detroit, but
For sure.
yeah.
I mean, we might have freaking been in the play-in this year,
Oh, yeah, for sure.
despite the soft tank, if we were in the East. So,
Mm-hmm.
oh my goodness, I'll say I like what you said there, Chris. Just to throw out something else, I really think kind of that 4 to like 7 range, is probably the sweet spot for us next season. I really hope we could get into the 6th seed though. It's funny that you mentioned like that kind of right in the middle, because if you had to like say like gun to my head right now, May 28th, I would say 6th seed.
Yeah.
And I really hope that that's the case, like you said, so we can get out of the play-in. And then on top of that, that goes to Ethan's point, because I believe the not the Sixers. I was thinking red, white, and blue. The Pistons were the 6th seed as well this year. So yeah, that I completely agree with what Ethan said there as well.